Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we'll be reviewing New York Green Bank's investment activity and impact during the fourth quarter of 2025. I'm Ria Mizuno. I'm on New York Green Bank Strategy, Impact, and Communications team, and I will be presenting today's webinar. So before we get into the details, I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping items first. Next slide, please. Great. So first, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can submit them through the Slido Q&A feature at any time during the event. So you can do that by clicking the three dots on the lower right corner and select the Slido option to open the feature, and we will address any questions at the end of the presentation or follow up via email. Second, the full report of this Q4 metrics report that we are discussing today is available to download on our website. The slides from today's presentation will also be up on our website in the coming days. Lastly, if you're experiencing any technical issues related to WebEx, please email Adam Hawk at the email listed on the slide. And with that, let's take a look at our agenda today. So we will get started with a performance and portfolio update and review New York Green Bank's progress against its annual objectives. We'll then review trends over time for some of our key performance indicators, and at the end, we'll let you know what events are coming up next for New York Green Bank. So with that, we can get into it. Next slide, please. Great. So let's get started with New York Green Bank's performance at a glance. Since inception, as of December 31st of 2025, New York Green Bank has committed over $2.6 billion across 156 transactions over 9 technology segments. These investments are expected to mobilize over $10 billion in total project costs and reduce 50 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions over the lifetime of the projects. To put that number in perspective, it's equivalent to removing over 518,000 cars from the road for 24 years. And if we go to the next slide, here are just some other ways that we can think about greenhouse gas impact beyond just the metric tons number, which can be hard to visualize. So on an annual basis, projects supported by New York Green Bank investments are estimated to reduce emissions equivalent to the emissions generated by all of the households in the Finger Lakes and Southern Tier regions combined, diverting over 120,000 garbage trucks worth of waste to recycling instead of landfilling. And finally, it's also equivalent to the amount of carbon dioxide sequestered in a year by a forest that's larger than New York City, Long Island, and Westchester put all together. Next slide, please. In the fourth quarter of 2025, New York Green Bank committed $58 million across 2 transactions in 2 of New York Green Bank's priority market segments, energy storage and clean energy generation. The first was a $50 million participation in a $675 million syndicated construction revolver and term loan, which supported the construction and operations of a national portfolio of 55 distributed generation assets developed by Soltage. 12 of these projects are standalone battery energy storage systems located in New York City, and this investment is set to increase installed storage capacity in the city by approximately 2/3. And this is a significant step in strengthening grid reliability and accelerating New York City's clean energy transition. Second, New York Green Bank closed an $8 million revolving credit facility. If you could go one back, thank you. With Abundant Solar to finance interconnection deposits for a portfolio of distributed solar and solar plus storage projects in New York State. So this marks New York Green Bank's 25th interconnection financing, each of which has helped address early stage financing gaps and collectively have mobilized over $2 billion worth of distributed solar and storage projects, providing energy affordability and resiliency benefits to communities across the state. So major kudos to both of the deal teams within New York Green Bank, as well as our borrowers for executing these impactful transactions. Next slide, please. During Q4, New York Green Bank also continued to manage a robust pipeline consisting of $185 million of transactions. So here's a closer look at some breakdowns of this pipeline. So if we start on the very left, If we look at the top three sectors of the technology breakdown, building decarbonization was the most prominent portion of the pipeline this quarter. That's the one in the brown, making up over half at 55%. Almost a third was made up by energy storage transactions and 11% by clean transportation transactions. So it's been really exciting to see many opportunities in our pipeline for these priority sectors. Next, if we look at the geography, which is the middle pie chart, we can see that most of this pipeline was made up of transactions supporting projects that are downstate. So that's focused on the New York City and Long Island area, with the remaining supporting projects statewide. And lastly, if we look to the end use customer breakdown on the very right, the multiple sector in the brown is the largest and associated mostly with building decarbonization projects. The multiple means that there could be a combination of end users. For example, it could be reflective of building decarbonization projects that is partly for housing and partly for commercial uses. The community distributed generation portion in yellow is mostly associated with the energy storage opportunities in the pipeline. Next slide, please. In this next section, we have some brief updates regarding 4 of New York Green Bank's objectives and deliverables. We go to the next slide. Looking at the right-hand column in blue, you can see that New York Green Bank has made strong progress towards some of its key deliverables. First, in terms of addressing funding gaps, with the closing of our abundant solar transaction that I mentioned earlier, New York Green Bank exceeded its $50 million in clean energy generation investment target for the 2025 through 2026 fiscal year by $8 million. Second, the closing of the fourth quarter in 2025 marked the end for several of New York Green Bank's multi-year investment targets that span from 2020 through 2025. So for our affordable housing investment target, New York Green Bank came as close to achieving its $150 million investment target as you could possibly get, closing out at $149.9 million. This near achievement still marks remarkable progress for New York Green Bank in this very important sector, and it's progress that New York Green Bank continues to build upon as we now look towards 2026 through 2030 targets that we will preview in our next quarterly webinar. Most notably, after the passage of the Climate Act in 2019, New York Green Bank aimed to assure that by 2025, at least 35%, with a goal of 40%, of its investment commitments would benefit New York State's disadvantaged communities. As of year-end 2025, 50% of New York Green Bank's investment commitments since 2020 have benefited disadvantaged communities, with the bulk of that progress coming from investments in community solar and building decarbonization projects that lower energy costs and improve efficiency for low to moderate income New Yorkers and residents of disadvantaged communities. Lastly, as of December 31st, which is 3 quarters into New York Green Bank's fiscal year, New York Green Bank is on track to achieve its goal of participating in 40 industry events as a speaker or panelist. Having participated in 32 industry events thus far, and this has ranged from the Economist Annual Sustainability Week to Solar and Energy Storage Finance USA to the Upstate New York Affordable Housing Conference, New York Green Bank has been out and about exchanging insights and lessons learned across a wide range of sectors with key stakeholders such as project developers, fellow investors, and environmental justice advocates. Next slide, please. We could go to the slide after that. In this section, we will review some trends in New York Green Bank activity over time. So this first chart here is a view of how funds are flowing through New York Green Bank's investment process. So to start off with just a little bit of context on how transactions are moving through the pipeline, first a proposal is scored, and if it passes, a deal team is formed, due diligence is kicked off, and a term sheet is negotiated. Then it goes through a greenlight committee where preliminary transaction details are reviewed and approved. And finally, an investment and risk committee before the transaction is finalized and ultimately closed. This chart is showing the progression of the dollar amount of transactions that are passing each of these pipeline approval stages. So to date, New York Green Bank has received $8.9 billion in proposals, of which $7.5 billion have passed scoring. From here, there's a drop off in the transactions that pass greenlight at about $3.6 billion. And finally, $2.8 billion have passed the final investment and risk committee stage. Ultimately, New York Green Bank has closed almost $2.7 billion in investments, which takes us to the next slide. The $2.7 billion of cumulative investments I just mentioned is this line at the top in dark blue, which is constantly growing. The two lines at the bottom are representative of New York Green Bank's current portfolio. So those are quarter end snapshots of the dollars that our team is managing for active portfolio transactions. So that excludes any transactions that have already exited New York Green Bank's portfolio. The yellow line in the middle is showing that New York Green Bank had $961 million in total committed in our active portfolio deals in Q4. And of that, $757 million were deployed to borrowers, represented by the lighter blue line at the bottom. Next slide, please. This chart is showing the growth of our estimated lifetime greenhouse gas emission reductions attributed to the projects that New York Green Bank has supported. So at quarter end, this ranged from 35 to 50 million metric tons. Most of the benefits from our investments are classified as direct impacts, which are the solid lines. So estimated impacts from direct investments into project development. And for a few of our transactions, impact is classified as indirect. These are intended to capture longer term effects of New York Green Bank's investments. So the dashed lines at the top are representing the addition of these indirect benefits. Next slide, please. This past quarter's revenues and expenses were comparable to last quarter's at $13.8 million and $4.5 million, respectively. And if we go to the next slide, here's a cumulative view of those revenues and expenses. The main takeaway here is that New York Green Bank has continued to be self-sufficient and able to cover its operating costs since 2017, when the revenue started overtaking the expenses cumulatively. Next slide, please. And this is a year-over-year view of the technology distribution of our active portfolio. As you can see on the very left, in earlier years, New York Green Bank's portfolio was characterized by fewer technology types making up our portfolio. And over time, we can see that the bar has become more colorful and more spread out as New York Green Bank branched out to support additional technologies and address evolving needs of the New York State clean energy market. Particularly, we've seen an increase in the building decarbonization section, which is in yellow. It was 34% in the last quarter, alongside newer and growing additions to the portfolio, such as clean transportation and energy storage. And this has resulted in the diversifying composition of New York Green Bank's portfolio over time. And if we go to the next slide, as mentioned earlier regarding fiscal year objectives, New York Green Bank's goal is to ensure that at least 40% of investments go towards projects benefiting members of disadvantaged communities. Over the past several years, New York Green Bank has steadily grown the proportion of our investments that benefit these communities. Since 2020, as of end of calendar year 2025, New York Green Bank has committed $738 million in projects benefiting disadvantaged communities, which is equivalent to 50% of New York Green Bank's total capital commitments. The table to the right is breaking down how these dollars are spread across various sectors. So in other words, of that $738 million, half were through community solar projects benefiting low-income subscribers and those residing in disadvantaged communities. The next largest portion, representing over a third of New York Green Bank stock progress, is building decarbonization. So this includes investments in affordable housing and the decarbonization of buildings located in disadvantaged communities. So with that, we will move on to take a look at some upcoming events to wrap us up. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so in terms of what's coming next, we have a few exciting events on the horizon. First, later this month, investment and portfolio management associate Andrea Lee is speaking on the panel about Greenbank's role in filling financing gaps at NYGO's 2026 annual conference in Brooklyn. Second, in April, Strategy, Impact, and Communications Associate Catherine Dunn will be speaking on a panel about New York Green Bank's capital role in the New York State energy transition at NYU Wagner's Climate Conference, which is right here in New York City. And lastly, later in the spring, you can find Managing Director Tron Rockel in San Diego, speaking on the panel Lender Perspectives on the Financing Outlook for Storage at InfoCast Energy Storage Finance and Investment 2026 conference. And you can expect to see more members of the New York Green Bank team out and about as more events solidify throughout the spring and summer. So we look forward to seeing you out there. All right, so this brings us to our Q&A session. So before we wrap up, I'm just going to take a minute to see if we've received any questions. So give me one moment, please. All right, seeing as there's no questions, we can move to the next slide, please. Oh, I actually see one question. Was this session recorded? Yes, this session was recorded and we will post it on our webpage. Great. So as a reminder to everyone on the call, you can stay in touch with us through any of the contact methods on this slide, and you can also follow us on LinkedIn. Thank you so much again for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you.